Conjuring 2, audiences were terrified by the eerie events surrounding the Enfield poltergeist, a paranormal case that rattled Britain in the 1970s. But what if I told you the real story behind the Enfield haunting is even more disturbing than what Hollywood showed us? Yes, the case was real, and the strange spine-chilling events that happened inside that small house in Enfield, North London, still defy explanation to this day. The Enfield poltergeist remains one of the most documented hauntings in paranormal history. From the eerie voices to objects moving on their own, the case became a media sensation, drawing attention not just from curious locals, but from paranormal experts around the world. But what really happened inside the Hodgson family home? And why does this case continue to captivate and disturb us almost 50 years later? To understand the terror of the Enfield poltergeist, we have to go back to where it all began, with a frightened family and a series of events that will leave everyone, including skeptics, questioning reality. It's August 1977 in Enfield, North London. The Hodgson family, a single mother, Peggy Hodgson, and her 4 children are living in a modest council house on Green Street. Life was already difficult for the Hodgsons, but they were about to face something that would change their lives forever. The strange occurrences began innocently enough. Knocking sounds, furniture shifting slightly, and small disturbances. But soon, these unexplained events would escalate beyond anything they could have imagined. One night, Peggy's daughter Janet, just 11 years old at the time, told her mother that her bed was shaking. At first, Peggy thought it was just Janet's overactive imagination. But when the sounds and movements continued and became more violent, Peggy knew something wasn't right. The family reported loud knocking sounds, furniture moving by itself, and even toys being thrown across the room with no visible force behind them. In one incident, a chest of drawers was said to have slid across the floor, seemingly pushed by an unseen entity. Peggy tried to push it back, but to her horror, it moved forward again. Word of the haunting spread quickly, and soon the press arrived. The Daily Mirror was one of the first newspapers to cover the story, and their initial report caused a sensation. But it wasn't just the media that took an interest. Maurice Gross, an investigator from the Society for Psychical Research, arrived at the home, determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. Shortly after, another investigator, Guillaume Playfair, joined him. What they witnessed would shake even the most hardened skeptics. Over the course of the investigation, Gross and Playfair documented over 2,000 incidents of paranormal activity. Objects would fly across the rooms, strange knocking sounds would echo through the house, and voices, deep, guttural voices, would come from Janet, even though her lips didn't move. One of the most unsettling aspects of the case was Janet's apparent possession. She would speak in a raspy voice, claiming to be the spirit of Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in the house years earlier. "I'm Bill," the voice would say, recounting details of Wilkins's life and death that the family could not have known. Was Janet truly possessed by the spirit of Bill Wilkins? Or was it something else? Something darker? As with most paranormal cases, the Enfield poltergeist attracted its fair share of skeptics. Some argued that the Hodgson children, particularly Janet, were faking the phenomena for attention. In fact, during the investigation, Janet admitted to playing pranks on occasion, but insisted that much of what happened was real and beyond her control. Despite the skepticism, Gross and Playfair remained convinced that there was something genuinely paranormal happening in the Hodgson home. They argued that while there might have been some exaggerations, the sheer number of unexplained events and the consistency of witnesses' testimonies pointed to something far more sinister. The haunting took a tremendous toll on the Hodgson family. Janet, in particular, was deeply affected, becoming the focal point of much of the activity. She would later describe feeling like something was taking control of her, forcing her to speak in that strange voice and act in ways she couldn't understand. The family was terrified. living in constant fear of what would happen next. While the paranormal activity eventually subsided after 2 years, the emotional scars remained for a lifetime. The Enfield poltergeist case remains one of the most well-documented paranormal cases in history, with extensive records, photographs, and recordings of the events. It has inspired countless books, documentaries, and of course, The Conjuring 2, which brought the terrifying story to a whole new generation. But even decades later, the case continues to divide opinion. Was it all an elaborate hoax? Or was the Hodgson family truly tormented by something otherworldly? The story of the Enfield poltergeist blurs the lines between fact and fiction, leaving us to question what we believe about the supernatural. What really happened in that small house in North London? While skeptics may continue to search for logical explanations, the chilling experiences of the Hodgson family and the investigators who witnessed the events firsthand suggest that some things remain beyond our understanding. Known as the witch Bathsheba in the horror blockbuster The Conjuring, it's no secret that audiences worldwide were left terrified by her sinister presence. But what many may not know is that the nightmarish character, much like Ed and Lorraine Warren, is inspired by real events. While the film takes creative liberties, weaving a terrifying narrative of curses and possession, the true story behind Bathsheba Sherman is rooted in real history, with a much more complex and mysterious past. The haunting in the Perron family farmhouse, which Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated, put Bathsheba at the center of an eerie tale that blurred the line between fact and folklore. To understand how the legend of Bathsheba came to be, and why her name became synonymous with dark forces, let's start by taking a look at the life she led and the unsettling rumors that followed her long after her death. The movie's depiction of Bathsheba Sherman might be exaggerated for Hollywood, but the true story behind her is rooted in eerie legends and real-life mysteries from the 19th century. Bathsheba Sherman was an actual person who lived in Harrisville, Rhode Island in the 1800s. She was married to a farmer named Judson Sherman and lived in a nearby estate, not far from the infamous Perron family farm. On the surface, her life seemed typical for the time, simple, rural, and grounded in the duties of farm life. However, as time passed, unsettling rumors began to cling to her name, darkening her otherwise ordinary existence. These rumors, especially one about her sacrificing an infant to the devil, eventually took on a life of their own. Though no official charges were ever brought against her, whispers of witchcraft clung to Bathsheba Sherman like a dark cloud. Enter Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators who had already made names for themselves with high-profile cases, including the Amityville haunting and the infamous Annabelle doll. Their reputation for uncovering the truth behind terrifying hauntings made their involvement with the Perron family both significant and alarming. These accusations, though unproven, stuck in the minds of the community, painting her as a malevolent figure. For years, she was cast as a local villain, the embodiment of evil in a time when superstition ran deep. As the rumors spread, fear and suspicion gripped the local community, turning Bathsheba into a figure of dread, even long after her death. This escalating fear would lay the groundwork for the chilling events that unfolded at the Perron farmhouse many years later. Years later, Ed and Lorraine Warren became involved with the Perron family, who had moved into a farmhouse in the early 1970s. The Perrons claimed to experience strange and terrifying events within the old farmhouse, objects mysteriously shifting across the room, eerie sounds echoing through the halls late at night. The haunting presence was undeniable, but what disturbed them the most were the apparitions they witnessed. Among the spirits they believed to be tormenting them, one stood out: the malevolent ghost of Bathsheba Sherman. According to Lorraine Warren, the spirit of Bathsheba was not only haunting the Perron family, but specifically targeting Carolyn Perron, the mother. The Warrens believed that Bathsheba's spirit was not merely present, but vengeful, determined to torment Carolyn. They suspected that Bathsheba's goal was possession, hoping to take over Carolyn's body and, ultimately, harm her family. For years, the Perrons lived in constant fear, feeling they were under siege by Bathsheba's relentless and malevolent spirit. Every unexplained occurrence in the home seemed tied to her presence, pushing the family deeper into despair. The Perrons' experiences, though dramatized in the film, were very real to them. For nearly a decade, they reported being tormented by spirits, with Bathsheba's name at the center of their fear. Lorraine Warren, a renowned paranormal investigator, claimed to have communicated with Bathsheba during a seance. She was convinced that Bathsheba's spirit had cursed both the land and Carolyn Perron, leaving the family in constant dread. In reality, the story of Bathsheba Sherman is a complex blend of historical record and unsettling legend. While she lived and died in Rhode Island, the accusations of witchcraft and her alleged cruelty became local folklore. Was Bathsheba truly a wicked woman? Or is she simply a scapegoat in a time when fear and superstition ruled the day? Whether any of the supernatural claims were true or not, the chilling tales about her character have survived for over a century. And with The Conjuring, her reputation as a malevolent figure was cemented into popular culture, forever linked to one of America's most famous haunted house stories. The mystery surrounding Bathsheba Sherman remains unsolved, but her legacy endures, blurring the line between history, legend, and horror. Did Bathsheba's malevolent spirit really haunt the Perrons? Or has her tale grown into something far darker than reality? Was she a misunderstood woman, falsely accused in life and in death? Or was there something darker, lingering beneath the surface of her reputation? Only time and belief hold the answer. The Conjuring franchise has haunted audiences with its terrifying portrayal of Annabelle. But what if I told you the real-life Annabelle is far more chilling than anything Hollywood could dream up? Yes, the doll exists, and her true story blurs the line between nightmare and reality. It may come as a surprise that the real Annabelle doll, at least on the surface, is not the nightmare's doll from hell as depicted in the films. Instead, she's a seemingly innocent Raggedy Ann doll, which only makes her story even more unsettling. According to the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, Annabelle was a vessel for something dark, something far more sinister than a child's toy. The story begins in 1970, when a nursing student named Donna received the doll as a gift from her mother. Donna lived in an apartment with her roommate, Angie, also a nursing student. At first, the doll seemed harmless, a typical cuddly toy. But soon, strange occurrences began to unfold. It started small. Donna and Angie would return home to find the doll had shifted positions. At first, they dismissed it as imagination or forgetfulness. But as time passed, Annabelle's movements became more bizarre and harder to ignore. The doll would appear in different rooms, even though no one had touched her. Sometimes Donna would leave Annabelle on the couch, only to return and find her back in Donna's room, seated on her bed. But that wasn't the worst of it. One day, the roommates discovered parchment paper with messages scrawled on it in childlike handwriting. The notes read, "Help us," and "Help Lou." What was particularly eerie? Neither Donna nor Angie owned any parchment paper, but things were about to get even darker. Lou was a close friend of Donna and Angie, and he often visited their apartment. Unlike Donna, Lou had always felt uneasy about the doll, warning Donna to get rid of it from the start. One night, Lou had a terrifying encounter that changed everything. He reported waking up in the middle of the night, completely paralyzed with fear. As he looked around, he saw Annabelle slowly crawling up his body. Frozen in terror, he watched as the doll reached his chest and began strangling him. Although this horrifying event felt like a nightmare, Lou was convinced it had been real. In another incident, Lou and Angie heard rustling noises coming from Donna's room. Lou decided to investigate, but when he entered, the room appeared empty. Suddenly, Lou felt a sharp pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw what appeared to be claw-like scratches, deep and burning across his skin. This was the breaking point for Donna, Angie, and Lou. With the strange and dangerous activity escalating, Donna finally sought outside help. That's when the famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren entered the picture. Known for their work in paranormal investigations like the Amityville Horror and the Enfield poltergeist, the Warrens quickly identified that Annabelle wasn't haunted by a harmless spirit. According to Lorraine Warren, the doll wasn't inhabited by a child's ghost, but rather something much more terrifying, a demonic entity. The spirit was using the doll as a conduit, tricking Anna and Angie by pretending to be an innocent young girl. The Warrens believed that the entity's ultimate goal was possession, and it was only a matter of time before it attempted to take over one of the residents of the apartment, most likely Donna. Realizing the danger, the Warrens immediately contacted a priest to perform an exorcism on the apartment, hoping to rid it of the dark presence. But what would become of Annabelle? The Warrens took the doll with them, placing it in their occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut, where it remains to this day. The doll is kept in a specially designed glass case, and a priest blesses the case regularly to prevent any further malevolent activity. Even now, visitors to the museum claim to feel a sense of dread when standing near the doll. Some have even reported misfortunes after mocking or disrespecting Annabelle during their visit. Thanks to the Warrens' accounts and the inclusion of Annabelle in the Conjuring Universe, the legend of the doll has continued to grow. The movie version of Annabelle, while terrifying, doesn't fully capture the real horror of the Raggedy Ann doll story. The true story of Annabelle remains one of the most well-known cases in paranormal history. The seemingly innocent doll has gone on to cement its place as one of the most feared objects in the world. So, was Annabelle truly a vessel for a demonic entity? While skeptics might doubt the Warrens' claims, the people involved in this case, Donna, Angie, Lou, and the Warrens themselves, were left convinced of the doll's dark power. Whether you believe it or not, one thing is certain: the real story of Annabelle is even more terrifying than what we've seen on the big screen. And with the doll still locked away in the Warrens' Occult Museum, one can only wonder what might happen if Annabelle ever escaped her case. Be sure to check out our other videos where we dive into more real-life paranormal cases. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join us as we explore the dark, mysterious, and unexplained. Oh, and most importantly, have a ghoulish good night.